Bree, founder of Kickass Women. Join Jo over the next hour as she shares stories and conversations that are both inspiring and empowering. Having spent over 30 years in the corporate sector, Jo Sainsbury kicked off her heels and became a coal train driver working in the rail and mining industry. It has been her goal ever since to empower and support women who are considering a career change into an industry role, making the transition as smooth as possible. Jo is a walking, talking success story of how taking the plunge into industry can open up a world of opportunity. And you can do it too. If you're a woman working in industry or considering a career change, this is the radio station for you. Let's get into this episode of Kickass Radio.
Hey there, Glow Getters. Welcome to the Kickass Radio Show. Am I excited for today's show? You bet your kick-ass I am. Well, what a busy month we have ahead of us. Congratulations, ladies. Welcome to the month of March, wherein it's Women's History Month for the whole month. How's that? And in particular to the lead up to International Women's Day, next Tuesday, the 8th of March. Kickass Women is going to be celebrating the past and focusing on the future. We want to shine a light on the incredible accomplishments as women of leadership, entrepreneurship, and innovators throughout history, while also acknowledging the immense challenges women face today, especially as leaders, entrepreneurs, and innovators. We are also taking advantage of it being the 12th year of celebrating Women in Aviation Week from the 7th to the 13th of March, and also timely as we have one hell of a special guest for you today to lead us into the celebrations of the coming weeks ahead. Now, can you expect a lady to say these words? Welcome on board. Now we are flying too. Surely those words from a lady would have surprised you a number of years ago, because it was too often found a woman welcoming you on a flight as a pilot, as it was a common concept that it must be a man sitting in the cockpit. However, women today are earning their wings, so to speak, and taking flight. The International Society of Women Airline Pilots, the ISA, has estimated that just 4,000 of the world's 130,000 pilots, or a mere 3%, are female pilots. And these women are paving the way for a new tomorrow. Rumours say that the aviation profession requires people with special characteristics and distinct physical abilities to engage in it. It's a mistake, as women are no different from men in flying aircraft. Women are always working hard to prove to the world that they are skilled, fit, and qualified for the job. Just because you're a woman, you don't have to make double efforts to succeed. If we fail, no one says she can't succeed. Instead, they will say, women do not have all the capabilities necessary to succeed. The lack of female role models may be one of the reasons why many girls were not considering becoming pilots or entering the aviation industry. Thus, we need to encourage more female pilots as role models for young women to dare to take the step. Now, that's just one of our high-flying topics today with our special guest, who is one hell of a kick-ass storytelling pilot, and storytelling she can do. We are going to try one-handed reading, pun fully intended there, and you'll find out later. The past decade has seen a boom in women turning to the page to detail sexy stories that would very likely make even Christian Grey blush. And for anyone who knocks erotica as anything less than an art form, women writers come to the world of erotica for different reasons. Some as a business opportunity, some to safely explore sexual fantasies they can't share in their real lives, and some simply to create hot stories that will arouse the readers. And I do think it's a positive for women that erotic fiction has become more mainstream. Not having erotica tucked away into some dark corner sends a message that it's okay to think about sex, to think about what turns you on. Erotica gives us permission, in case we didn't have it already, to acknowledge ourselves as sexual and sexy beings whose desires may be far more complicated than we're often led to believe. The fact that erotica, along with erotic romance, from blockbuster print bestsellers to upstart indie ebook publishers to websites and magazines, is so widely available, means that we are becoming more comfortable talking about sex, including some deep, kinky sex. Take a stroll through any given bookstore romance section and you're just as likely to see handcuffs hanging about. Female authors are writing about straight women, lesbian women, bisexual women, male-to-male erotica, and beyond. And in the process, giving their fellow readers access to all sorts of models of sexual fulfillment that don't fit any kind of mold. Have you considered long form fiction, or are short stories your thing? Well, we're going to find all the juicy info out today with our sensational guest, Naomi Radke, writer of erotica and master of short fiction. I've known Naomi for several years now, and what drew me to Naomi's writing is her ability to do so much with brevity and clarity. Naomi Radke is a pilot and creator and founder of Oh Me Time online erotica library. So to get bang for our buck today, and also a clearer understanding of the overall experience of working in the aviation industry as a pilot, then taking flight into the erotica world, we are getting all sensual. And who doesn't love a cheeky, sexy story? A pilot story, flying high at home and at work. You are listening to the Kickass radio show Kickstart, where we talk about all things women working in non-traditional roles in varied male-dominated industries, and I tell you how it is. I'm your host, Jo Sainsbury, the Glow Getter. I hope we can keep you in good company over the coming hour. A huge shout out to all the women working out on track and on site today all over the globe. Stay safe and have a fantastic day or night shift. And this might also be a good time for a trigger warning that today's radio show does and will contain some adult language. Let's get into it. Hello, Naomi, and welcome to Kickass Radio. Thank you for sharing some of your valuable time with us today. I know you're super busy, but I also know we are all going to absolutely love the conversation with you today, and we're eager to delve into some hot topics.
Excellent. Thanks for having me, Jo.
So to kick things off, tell us a little bit about yourself and your career thus so far, and what led you to pursue a career as a pilot?
Wow, well, that goes back a long time now. I was fairly much a normal kid, just, bummed around and did all those sorts of things. But I had a little advantage that my dad was a pilot, an airline pilot, and I was the youngest of 4 girls. And one day he came home from work saying, they're going to let women fly planes. And I went, whoa, that's it. Because I've been looking for something that was different, because I don't really feel like I was that normal in some ways. But when he opened the opportunity up by just saying that this is possible, and it was when the first female pilot was in the news for Ansett, which was Debbie Wardley, and she took Ansett to court, and so that sort of just was opened up my mind to that this is maybe something that I could do. And there wasn't many, because obviously she was the first one that was pushing for it. But once I thought about that idea was okay for me, told Dad, and I was the youngest because there was no boys. He went, okay, well, let's have a look at it. And so I got to go and have a flying lesson to see if I liked it. And because my dad was a pilot, I'd been in aeroplanes a lot, so the actual environment wasn't that unusual to me to be in.
And what a great role model to aspire to follow, like in your dad's footsteps. So as your role as a pilot, how did you manage when you're first being new into that industry and not that many female pilots in there? What were some of the challenges that you faced and that you overcome throughout the first part of your career?
Yeah, it's interesting, the start. I didn't think there was anything unusual about it until I actually started and went, and everybody else seemed to be quite excited about it, or thought it was quite a big deal. And because at school I was always in the science and maths area, and it was obviously there was only a few girls in that, and I just thought that's just how it is, and I got along with the boys in the class, and it was just a bit like that. So when I actually started, I sort of treated it initially, it was like I was hanging out with if I had a brother, then this is what it would have been like, hanging out with these guys. But it was more once I got in further that sometimes there was people that weren't used to the idea yet of women flying and being in this sort of role. So it was more other people's attitude that surprised me a little bit, because I always say that the aeroplane doesn't care if you're male or female. The risk is exactly the same for a male or a female. It doesn't discriminate. So it was just getting used to other people's ideas on it, including passengers sometimes. Yep. So I sort of found a way eventually to just say, well, the people that matter are the people that I should listen to. So if a passenger was saying, some sort of comment about female drivers or something like that, then I just go. And it would normally up when I got onto the larger planes and with cabin crew, the cabin crew would get more upset for me than I would, because I just really don't have the time for the distraction. I've got a job to do, and that person that's offending me, I've got their life in my hands. So that's just dumb.
And it's good to see, like, sometimes it comes from the people closest to you, that you can't live your life based on fears or whatever one and someone else's fears more so. So having that support has enabled you to follow and pursue that career. And it's
I definitely find that was lucky. But that's why it's really important now that I'm older to look back and go, actually, what legacy have I left? And I don't really at this moment think I've left enough. So I'm actually now on a bit of a campaign to pass on what I found out from, I found underway to survive aviation, but then I found later in my career, I figured out how to thrive in it. And that's the bits I want to share, because that'll help lots of people save some time.
And it's definitely that way. And like, women have been involved in aviation from the beginning of both lighter than air travel, as airplanes, helicopters and space travel were developed. And we have our own pioneer woman of Australian aviation. As I said earlier, next week being International Women of Aviation Week, we need to acknowledge these pioneering women in Australian aviation, such as yourselves. Like, you've had a great career that's spanned over so many years. And Nancy Bird Walton, who forever is etched her name into Australian history, was tagged as the Angel of the Outback. And that was during the Second World War. She played a vital role in recruiting and training women for the Women's Auxiliary Air Force. And even though they didn't see combat, but they operated as an integral part of ground and support staff for the RAF. So it's great to see that, you're building this legacy now, and that there is legacy behind that backs it up and proves that women are definitely deserve a seat in that cockpit and have every capability of successfully having the careers. And it is, like you said, sorry, yep, you're right.
The women then, I wouldn't have thought it was a big deal. They just wanted to fly. Like that's the thing that, you meet later, that it is a big deal apparently to everybody else. Yeah. But, and I felt like I didn't want to be a path breaker. I just wanted to go flying because that sounded cool. and I could do maths. But then, it's all this later on that the complications around it. But then when you needed it, like women like Nancy Bird, that she couldn't even get a commercial license at some point because they wouldn't let her, so
that's right. Yeah.
Just because you can't do something doesn't mean you're not good at it. It's a really important message to pass on, that it could be a whole lot of other fluff and not actually the facts, which technical. Is if you understand it, you learn the plane, you learn the processes. And actually women bring a whole lot to that in like intuition. And that, like, I want to talk about more as well, as I work through and talk to young girls that might want to consider it like even a non-traditional role like what you're doing as well, that you don't have to be perfect all the time. No. The men aren't perfect all the time. No pilot, no driver it's just that you have to have a place to figure it out later, or learn from mistakes. And you're not perfect. And that's a really great message, because I think some might stay away because I think they have to be like the vision of that all the time. But don't forget, that's a human, and the human gets scared, and the human makes mistakes, and the human has emotions. And there's a real shift at the moment in aviation, which I'm kind of part of, with really introducing into the other area I work in with the pilot union, of really embracing the fact that the human brings something great to a complex system that you can't design. You bring something where you actually have a will to live, and how do you design that into a computer system or an automation system? So it's a really important thing that we need to understand. There is some value as we get more automated, that don't forget that, your gut feel and your intuition is really important still. And women have that in spades, I think, because you do that as a mum, you're busy doing all that stuff.
And that's a great point you bring up, because the future of work and the future of women in work includes that number, or there's the four C's they call it, and it is creativity, collaboration, communication, And emotional intelligence is one of those biggest skills that advantages women have over men. So definitely, you know, a career within the aviation department is definitely something that women can aspire to and pursue, because we're one up on a lot of those skills already than the male.
Well, it's actually just finding a way to be balanced in it, and there's a huge advantage in it, but it's also making sure we don't go too far the other way and make other people, the men, feel uncomfortable. It's more the men are going this way too, I'm finding, but it's just that I've always understood it, and when something happened in the airplane, whether it was a light came on or a noise is the biggest one to get your attention. As well, like the first thing that happens is an emotional response. So you can't deny that you're human in there, because they've often, right, like in the past, it's been to dehumanize crew and drivers or pilots or whatever. But now it's like you have to be able to not deny the emotion, just understand it and be aware of it, because then it actually helps you unlock your brain again, because your brain's designed to protect itself.
Yeah, that's right.
So by embracing you and getting in sync completely, then actually it's really good. And I definitely believe there's more space to go in this, and women have this little place there that you can bring something to the party with that. So yeah, it's very valuable.
Definitely. And like, we're getting on to that. Like, so you've stepped out of the cockpit now, and you're actually in more of a what am I going to say? A consultancy role now. You're in the current role as the safety officer at the AFAP, the Australian Federation of Aviation Pilots. So what does this role involve? And is this what you're talking about? You're setting up a legacy here and passing on these messages to existing pilots?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm in a small team of safety and technical area, and but I did leave aviation in 2015 because I kind of wanted to do a certain role, which there wasn't that sort of role, which was really looking in this area of helping people or nurturing in a way, and it's sort of a word that I really couldn't bandy around too much because it wasn't that tough, but I think it's tough. But it's it's an area where
there's your humanization of it. Doesn't have to be tough.
Yeah,
it's just reality.
It doesn't have to be tough. Like, it's just but so then I sort of went, it's not fitting me at the moment. So I went off and did some other thing, reskilled in other things such as business, and in different sorts of businesses as well, and then ended up back in the safety and technical area. Didn't see it coming as a move, but what I found is, like, right now I'm being able to give back to pilots and serve in a way of understanding their role. I have a huge empathy from actually going away from the industry for a few years and coming back. It actually makes me super aware of how challenging these any complex area is, and I have a lot of respect. And now I can actually go, okay, now I can understand their problem, and now I've got an area where I can go, okay, let's look at different airspaces or things that are happening that are challenging, which we could do something about. I can do something about it now. And rather than just complaining, sometimes on the line you're frustrated by things, but you don't know who's got your back. I get to have people's back now, all pilots' backs, men and women, and I absolutely love it, and found a place to thrive in there. So the day-to-day stuff of that is we work on any airspace changes coming through. We might work on I'm on sort of a support committee for monitoring the trends, and I love being in that because I understand the job, and it helps to be able to bring that to the party and understand what it would be like for the crew. And I also work in the support of if they need sort of a peer kind of support, if they've got any investigations to do, because if anything occurs in industry like yours or mine, everything is looked at and investigated, so they need a supporter for that. I end up in that role, and I really love being able to do that too, because if anything happens in your career where it has a little hiccup, whether you fail a check or you have an event, that moment in time, that's the worst thing that's ever happened to you, because your career's on the line, your ego's on the line, everything's on the line. So you need someone who's just going to go, okay, this is a moment in time, I've got your back. We can't stop that you're right here in this moment experiencing this, but I can help you with this process from here. And suddenly I've gone, I'm exactly where I need to be from this side of things, but I've learned lots of things along the way as well, which is like, it's almost, I'm going to say it, it's about being vulnerable. So,
Yes.
you know, being around for a pilot when they're vulnerable is my perfect place. And which has also led to me the other side of my business, of other things I do when I write. It's all about being vulnerable, because I went and got vulnerable to go and write for women and look at, you know, women and their whole self.
Yep.
And so that's something we'll obviously get to.
Yes.
as we chat.
That's right, we will. So in your role, like you mentioned earlier, like we all need to fail to create success, and we're human. We are human, and we will have errors. And in my job as well, as we said, safety is your most critical part of your job. And being a pilot, you've got the lives of passengers and your crew, your fellow crew, in your hands. So a safety critical incident is very deliberating is the word I'm trying to think of the word. So as you said, it hits your ego, it hits your confidence. So if you guys didn't have backup before, and you're providing this, how much of a stepping stone is that in rebuilding self-confidence, and reassuring the pilots that, hey, yes, you are human. This did occur. We will work through it. We'll progress into how we can measure for it not to happen again, and how we'll manage it better should something, you know, occur again. But that's a great space to work in, and it's a good follow-up that obviously the profession needs. If you said it wasn't there previously, and we're all lifelong learners, and we all need to learn from mistakes.
Yeah, well, it sort of was there before, but it's at the moment just shifting into another gear is what it feels like to me. And because even, you know, looking at a union, it's not just about industrial affairs, it's about personal, you know, the human, you know, which is and what can you do? And sometimes it's good to have, you know, this area of safety and technical is great because it's actually other pilots looking after other pilots.
Yeah.
And so there's two aspects to it. And what's shifting is, and it's sort of something we're working on like right now, is a shift towards that, you know, it used to be that the human was kind of weakest link in a complex system. And now it's kind of, you know, it's flipping on the back, and some of the, you know, globally it's starting to occur. And so we're really looking at it right now to bring into where the human is almost the strongest link.
Good point,
because because, you know, in the past, everything was a lot simpler. So you could see where things were breaking in a process. Now everything's with automation. It's actually, you don't see where it is in the process, and you're not seeing the actual, the workings of it. So if it does stop working, you've got to suddenly be ready for that surprise or that startle. And actually then, so you can't, and you can train for lots, and there's heaps of great work in this we do. But they can't design it for everything that might go wrong. So that's why the human's so important, to have them developed. If an event happens, then they come back better. Or if they have something going on at home that they have to take time off work for, they come back better. And that's a real shift, even in the way Cass is looking at this as well. An event I've just been to actually was talking about, you know, looking at as the human, that, you know, a critical incident, like you mentioned, is not just something bad that, you know, something broke or someone got hurt. A critical incident can be something at home. You got divorced at that moment in time. That's a critical incident for you, because you have to then show up or not be at work or go and get help to then get back to where you're in your best zone, so to speak.
And that's exactly right, because we know coming to work and not being fit for duty, so to speak, regardless of whether it's physical capability or your mental capability, that's a bad thing. Like, to come to work carrying all that load and to have such a critical safety orientated job as a pilot, how do they function? Like, they couldn't be functioning full on if the mind is absolutely working overtime trying to address things that they do and aren't trying to deal with at home. So to have that backup support, and what a better way then also is to share experiences. You know, other pilots may not have had the same incident, but something along the similar lines. And when they share experiences and share their learnings, you learn so much more again, don't you?
Well, we have a bit of a mentoring program which we're just about to potentially revamp, and looking at not just at new people coming into the world of aviation. That's one aspect, but there's so many next steps and next levels in the industry, and same in any industry. So it's going from a small plane to a slightly larger plane. It's going from a piston engine to a turbine engine. It's going from one pilot to multi-crew. There's all these steps, which a really good thing would be to do, which is what we're developing, is that at that point you have someone who's already at that next step, and you bridge that gap and get those people together. And that way, that's where you get to share the experience. And I was on a focus group about this sort of thing for women and getting more message out for women into aviation, is bridging the gap, but returning the stories and not telling the stories about how great I was all the time.
Right.
And I saved the day. It's actually there's times where every pilot of any gender has a little bit of uncertainty, and there's moments of it's hard, and sometimes things go wrong. And I'm not saying it's always just like a terrible incident or anything. It's just that something can go wrong where you suddenly not your sharpest and you might fail a simulator check. Things don't always go right, but there's always a way through it, and there is life after it. And that's the sort of good stories to share, to make it more palatable for people to consider, especially women to consider.
So
that's why I haven't done enough of that. I have to keep talking like this, because the reason I actually got into wanting to talk more is because I used to always think it was about my own ego, like chatting about this stuff. But I've realized that actually that was my ego not passing back the legacy. But my daughter actually was talking about maybe going to space and doing her degrees. She's 18,
aerospace,
and then she might need to do some flying training as part of that. But being in the mission side, I've more of a bioscience area, but you need to still do. And she thought she might have to do some flying training, and suddenly it hit me going, whoa, have I set the industry up to where I think she's it's good for her there might be some things I can pass on to others, and that has really kicked me into gear. It's not about me talking about, is not about me. I'm well beyond ego. It's actually talking about to bridge these gaps and pass on, and maybe even expose more girls to wanting to consider it early enough, so if I choose the right subjects to go into an area like this, or any non-traditional role, because we're good at it. There's lots of good stuff we do at it, and it can still be girly, because I went through a whole thought I had to be tough and a bit too masculine for a while, and that worked for a while, but it wasn't my true full self. It wasn't until I really went, actually, I have to just be me. And once you find who you are, that's where my thrive happened. And that's sort of what I'm starting to share is, you don't have to be anyone else. You just got to be you, and that can be. Don't be other women either. Don't be man. Just be
that's
you.
it, and that's the biggest hurdle. A lot of people have got to get over. You've got to be your authentic you. Authenticity is the best you. Because if you're not authentic, keeping up that facade of being someone else or trying to be someone else, that's too much hard work, and that's where things will.
It's exhausting.
It is, yes.
It's exhausting.
So finding your why, finding who you really are, and just living through and true to who you are, and being who you are at work, at home. That's the best way to be. And so in regards to that. What you're following up through now, like sharing experiences, and that, like a mentoring program. So is that what you're looking at? Like a mentoring is so advantageous, because it's not only just an advisory, it's a feedback. Having a good mentor provides that feedback. They can advise, they can guide, and it's about their shared experiences and how they've traverse through similar incidences. So having those great role models and mentors in the industry is definitely a great stepping stone to get the younger women involved and pursue, as you said, follow the right career path to pursue these careers, and in different areas of the aviation industry.
Yeah, and there's more than just flying the plane. There's also this. Right. I know they're very short of engineers.
Yeah.
That fixing the planes. There's lots of space and areas for that, and engineering opens up. Because you want to future-proof what you're doing as well.
That's right.
Engineering has got lots of other options, and that you can go into later as the world evolves. Aviation's an interesting one in that as a future-proof job. In that, that's why I think we need to make sure that we're keeping pilots relevant and and train driving and stuff, because it's easy to replace, but they can't design it for everything. So I keep going, like, let's keep ourselves relevant by developing us as our emotional intelligence, our responses to surprise and startle, which it's called when something happens suddenly. This is a huge area of that I'm quite passionate about, to keep pilots relevant, and that's why people need to make the shifts. And so the mentoring, there is an element that we already have, but it's actually expanding it to include how you handle critical incident stress, and how you come back from that, how you get yourself in sync and understand your early warning systems of stress or anxiety when something's happening, to get your brain functioning again sooner. The best example of someone who got themselves in sync as a pilot is Sully.
Yes, I was just about to say that, the Hudson
River,
Airbus
into the Hudson.
Yes.
He's like guru pilot to a lot of people, because he's got a lot of experience, but he's also, there's difference. You can have a lot of experience, but you can also still not be that self-aware. He had everything, in that. And so he's a great example of, getting into sync, to be able to get, because in that, it was like an unprecedented, no engines, the decisions, and you're getting all these people trying to help you out, like from air traffic control, to actually just declutter everything and come back to the human who's sitting there in sync. Okay, what have I got? And thinking the positive. Okay, I've still got the airplane flying. We're still gliding. There's an open bit of water in front of me. It's a huge decision, but that's someone in sync, and that's where the mentoring sort of to go. Let's develop the mentors so that they are passing on what that side of the experience that they've learned, and even develop them more as. So it's not just okay, you can become a mentor. It's actually train for this new way of looking at the human being, so important in the system.
Yep. No, that's excellent to hear. So great milestones that and achievements that you're working towards there. I just wanted to ask a question before we move on. So what's it like sitting with men for like 20 years? What's that done to you? Like sitting right beside, and I could probably have a chat about the same thing, but when you're sitting in
the same thing, we could have a talk over wine about this space. Well, I have a funny saying that my partner says, because I do like to chat. Okay, so let's just get that. And I apparently have a knack of making a long story longer. So sorry. But I always used to just have a way of, I don't know, I just seem to be able to get trust with people quickly. And often I really was the first captain that the first female captain that ever flown with. So I just tried to, I from that point of view, I just tried to make it comfortable that I'm not out to get you. I'm not the enemy. Airplane doesn't care. Just keep me out of the news. I don't want to be in the news unless it's for something fantastic. Then I'd love to be in the news and and do a Sully, But then my partner says now, because I chat so much, that there was scratch marks on the inside of the door of the co-pilot trying to get out because I was sick of listening to me. But so I found a way just to get along, and I didn't get along with everybody, but you still had what protects you. What protects you is the process and the systems and the checklist. So you can not even like the person you're flying with, and you can still get along and get the job done. And that's really important to separate it. Whether you catch up with them on the overnights and go and have dinner with them, not necessarily, but mostly you do, but you don't have to either. It's just more about what the important thing is. The airplane.
You need to keep each other accountable, don't you?
But I did learn a lot about how a man's mind works. And sometimes I could also, it makes me, I feel like sometimes I can think man. and that's from the influence of sitting next to them for 20 years. And in reflection of my life, where I ended up in, the two parts that I used to think were separate are sort of coming together as one in writing and being, just being authentically yourself. Authentically for me is about, writing for women, because I sort of went, gee, the men are missing out on certain things because they're missing they're not reading the room, sometimes, and the stories I would hear from them. And they used to ask me to advice sometimes. I've had
they always do, don't they?
about, can I ask you advice as a woman? I just about drop my coffee, you know, in the flight there. You know, oh, I don't know, like what depends where this is going to go. I don't know. But, you know, I don't even know what you can talk about these days because, you know, it's a different world now and what's appropriate. But, you know, I just, you know, found a way to, I always had, you know, time where it was just more relaxed because it's time, you need to sort of keep yourself in a state of about 80% because when you have to go to 100 when something's going on, you can't be at 100 the whole time because you're human, you know, we come back to that, you're human. So it's just being, you know, keeping it relaxed enough. But I heard plenty of stories.
And that's exactly right, because as I said, like similar to my position, we're in a confined cab, and you have to keep your mind. It's very much vigilance on your job. That's your duty and your task ahead of you. Operating the train in my instance, or the plane in your instance. But you engage in conversation, and then you have your quiet time where that is your zone where you are definitely on tap to what you're doing and you need to be. But yeah, the confined space, as I said, the conversations that I've been privy to and the questions that you get asked, they are coffee dropping moments.
Yeah. So, actually, probably the hardest thing was actually, well, the newest thing was when I had female FOs, or co-pilots, first officers. That was a real adjustment. And I went, you know, some of them I go, I don't even know what to talk to you about. And they're like, I don't know what to talk to you about because I'm not used to this. Like none of us were used to flying with another girl. And then after like the initial, you know, it just became like, flying the aeroplane was actually the icebreaker because you just got on with your process and systems like everything else.
You checked.
But then I found it was such a refreshing thing because the conversations were different.
Very different. Yeah. So, Naomi, what advice can you lend and what would you say to younger women or women contemplating a transition and who are hesitant to consider a career in aviation at the moment?
I would just say that if you're seeking something different and, you know, you like the feeling of freedom, flying's a really good choice. And don't worry if you're not super brain on maths or super brain on sciences. It's just about being able to work out a problem and follow it to the end. And, you know, naturally women, I find that, you know, girls do that. Like I find girls are very disciplined. I don't know if they all are, but the ones around me seem to be very disciplined. My daughter is super disciplined. And so don't discount it because it is unusual. And that's, you know, in aviation, it is only 5% globally, but that's, you know, it's not because you can't do it. It might just be because so many people haven't considered it. So just consider it and go and find out more. Talk to a pilot, you know, ring me, ring me if you want, you know, so because I'm part of a public union now, so a pilots union. So it's sort of one of the things that you can actually find out more and also talk to male pilots too, because men are not, you know, the enemy either. Because my son is actually learning to fly. So I sort of go, it's not like, you know, I don't want to get him put down in the flight deck by a female either. I want everyone to be, you know, there as their merit. But it's also, you know, find out, because sometimes the guys are even finding it, oh, I don't even know, you know, at first I'm not sure how to be, but that's where it's important that we sort of go, I'm just here to be a pilot. And so for a young girl considering it, just go and if you do the work, it's not impossible. And you don't have to know it all on the first day, because people think, oh no, or if you get 79% and not 100% in a theory, it doesn't mean that you can't fly the plane.
That's right.
You know,
exactly right.
A lot of the stuff you learn in the theory, you don't often use practically. You don't use all of it. You don't. And so you figure out those things that are going to keep you alive. And that's what the training environment and now mentoring, which, you know, we're trying to be really big focus on, so that you can go actually and try and normalize some of it. So I just say, just be open to considering it.
And like I place a huge value on having men mentor women, because it provides a win-win situation for both parties. Like the women come to understand the perspective, the approach and the strategies of the men, and the men come to understand those of the women. So it enhances reflection and a great leadership attitude. So I'm all for that. And definitely, you know, as we said, there's a huge demand for pilots, for engineers and air staff for the future of aviation industry. And the future is still, you know, a lot of digitization and AI. So we need everyone to upskill, because those machines cannot fly alone. they need the human to work alongside and with them. So there's a lot of upskilling, or if you want to transition into these areas, definitely put yourself out there and ask. The best question is to ask.
There is pressure to actually, reduce to one pilot on the international
and that's
long flights.
That's right. And
there is pressure.
Yeah, and that's in all industries. Yeah, and that's right. And same with us. Like, they are trialing automated trains and that, but you need that crew on board, because in those critical safety incidents that may occur and do occur, you do need that human there to manage.
Because it's interesting, because you've got tracks to follow, and in the air you don't, like, there's different challenges in each of those because of that, because you're locked to a track, and we're not locked to a track. It still presents a different problem.
But as you said, and it's all a sensory thing. Like, we work on senses as well, like audible, visual. You feel in the seat of, in the cab, how our train's handling, if something's not right, you can feel it actually in the seat. So there's lots of sensory things that are involved with these type of roles. So we're going to have a little break and listen to one of the show's sponsors, and we'll be back soon to continue on with our next topic.
Hey Glow Getters, have you heard about Kickass Women? Founded by Jo Sainsbury, Kickass Women is dedicated to empowering and supporting women who are considering a career change into an industry role. Visit our brand new website at www.kickasswomen.com.au or follow Kickass Women on Facebook and LinkedIn today to keep up to date with all things Kickass Women and the incredible opportunities and content we have for you. See you there, Glow Getters.
Okay, thanks for tuning back in, listeners. And we are here chatting to Naomi Radke, who is a storytelling pilot. And we've just been talking about Naomi's career in the aviation industry, but we're going to delve a little deeper now, because, Naomi, I know you've worn many hats throughout your career and in life, but I know that you wear a very significant hat now, cap maybe, and one that you're very passionate about. Tell us about your business, Oh Me Time, and what inspired you to create and start this amazing and sensational business. Tell our listeners what led you to start writing erotic fiction.
So it was something that I didn't see coming. A lot of my life path, I didn't see it coming. But this was part of when I left aviation, and I was working in business with my partner. We, sold a business, and basically I've learnt business from sitting with him, because he's in like accounting and finance kind of area. So I learned a lot about business stuff. But along the way, I was often doing a lot of writing in that, and people seem to respond to the writing, or I connect very quickly in the writing, and I didn't really understand it at that point. And then I reflected back to when I did year 12. I got an A in English, and nobody understood, even my older sister that considered herself an English expert, that why do you need to be able to write to be a pilot? Like, it didn't make any sense. And so while I was out, and I started going, I started thinking, what can I do in writing that, because I found release in writing. It was my creativity release. And I thought, I need to sort of maybe do more of this. And so I love to travel, and we travel quite a bit. And I said, why don't I start a travel blog? That's where this started. It started like that. I started a travel blog, and then I went, but everyone's doing that, and sort of really moving on in my life. I found my whole self, and really feel like I'm in my prime and my super feminine. And along with that, so one night I woke up in the middle of the night and went, what, I should write about what happens in hotel rooms. Because I reckon, we could do with more of that, just, because they're all a bit serious sometimes about, matters of, sensuality and intimacy. We all get very serious, and it's always meant to stick to, we can't talk about that, or, women shouldn't talk about that. So I sort of went, I wonder if I should do that. I could write stories about this. And I started thinking, so I did a few with friends, and some were like, that's not for me, or whatever. And I started going, that's really interesting that for some people it wasn't for them to listen or read about read a story about an intimate story. But also it made me go, maybe that needs it more. It means we need to do it more. So I started up Oh Me Time, and the name came from Naomi. Used to get shortened to Omi because of my sister, because she couldn't say Naomi. So it's so it was a bit of Omi. This is the Omi for me, and then also the Me Time, talking about for women who, women who need to, we need to get better at having a conversation around sensuality and intimacy, because we don't really talk about it, and it's not in a way that's has to be yucky.
No, that's
it's just
right.
a way. Let's tell stories, and maybe along the way you might unlock some stuff for you, because also like not passing back to a legacy in aviation. I sort of went, okay, what am I passing on to, my daughter or the young women around me? It's up to, because women our age, we've got some hang-ups around this, around sex and stuff, and that's not really anyone's fault, because we just grew up in this world. But it's also then you don't get to stay in the story of, oh well, I'm not going to talk about it because that's upsets my mum or whatever. No, so now I went, okay, I'm going to start writing stories. So I started Omi Time, which is 3 different season type, three different topics. So there was one about a woman who's single and going back into and actually quite career woman type one. There's one that's divorced woman that's coming back, and like the challenges and feeling funny about coming back, and who am I now?
Yeah.
Because obviously her identity was probably attached a lot to her ex-husband. And then also someone who is married and they want to rekindle their marriage. So I just started these 3 different streams and writing, and weekly episodes, and I had a lot of fun writing them. And I would actually start talking. It actually opened up a conversation. Some friends aren't still wanting to, but I go, the more they see it, the more kind of going, oh yeah, like let's just relax and just chat about it. Yeah. But I would have a few that would be really happy to talk about it and tell me some of their stories. And I go, you okay if I put that in my stories? And they'd go, yeah, there's no worries. So a lot of the stuff in there, so it's just about women just becoming whole, and there's so much power when a woman is feeling good, or even if I can say it on your show, in a climax, how powerful is a woman in that moment? Why aren't we doing that all the time? Because there's our power.
It is. And it's like, I love reading the erotica for the pure and simple joy that it provides me, and, joy and other feelings that tend to, come from the pants.
Yeah. Because also sometimes we're off a lot in our heads.
Yep.
And sometimes, even, you can say like, oh, gee, how do I get out of my busy day? And why not? Like it doesn't have to have a bad stigma around it. So I'm just all about having a conversation. So Omi Time is about getting the conversation out about just be yourself, have fun, ask for what you want, or even have a conversation with your partner. If it's not right and you're not really enjoying it, you get a chance to fix it or explore more. One thing actually I wanted to talk about this other thing too, which I discovered in just another thing called OMG Yes, and I'm not even anything to do with them, but I actually signed up to listen to see what they're about, because it's sort of similar to Omi Time, I thought. But it's actually, they've spoken to 20,000 women aged 18 to 95 about sex and how they like it, what they missed out, what they didn't know, and there is so much out there that women don't know.
And it is, and giving women permission to explore some of their own feelings about sex and fantasy and the unknown, curiosity, delving into curiosity. And it's like, you've got grandmothers now talking about it with their granddaughters. So it's becoming more and more acceptable. And women are becoming more open to these conversations, because, as you said, there's a lot of information out there that a lot of women are unaware of and have not experienced certain experiences, the feelings, So it's a great.
So I sort of feel like it's like an uplift to the world in a way. And for a long time I didn't understand. It was like I was cut in half in, what do I do? Am I a pilot and helping pilots, or am I the female helping women and writing sensual stories? And sometimes I write stuff, I go, oh no, can I write that? But I go, yeah, why not? I give myself permission on that. But it's, the gift I have to give in that is just to open up the conversation and find out more. And, because imagine how much power we've still got to unlock if we're all feeling good. You're like the center of a universe in your family. So imagine if you're feeling super good and, on a high level and high vibration, imagine the ripple effect that is. And we have a blended family, my partner and I have lots of kids, 5 of them. They're all grown up now. But we've tried to be really open about, everything around sex. And, even before I started, I actually asked them, are you okay if I start writing in this area? And they went, whatever, like teenagers do, whatever. So, I just went with it and hope that, women start being open to read about it, and you're not bad. There's nothing wrong with it. You're actually fulfilling you, making you more whole, finding out more about yourself.
You are. And for like a lot of us, kids, jobs, marriages, the business of life, we're just trying to keep up with the world. And it's hard enough to do that, let alone having anything left for a sexual life. And we're all too tired, too stressed, too worried to have a great, adventurous, intimate relationship. But reading about it may well be what we all just have energy for at the time. And that's a great de-stress and, provides that de-stressing. So and
also even just to take your mind off the busyness of our lives.
Yep.
To maybe just to wake up, ignite something inside yourself. So then you do want to. So then like a ripple effect, can happen even with your partner, or that you can feel good and you're allowed to feel good.
And that's right.
And why not? And make it a priority. And this is like a lot of the stuff in there too is hearing what the guys aren't doing right, and listening to them in the flight deck has actually helped me write
and help them. It's a win-win, isn't it? Like we said, it's a win-win situation. Their contribution and your contribution, everyone learns and wins from it. And like,
it's actually, men should read it too.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's exactly right. Yeah. It's the unknown, and until you know,
as a guidance manual, a guidance manual, and actually what we want.
That's exactly right. And it's in your own words, it's a journey of the mind to where you want to take it. So where lifelines are perfect and the imperfections are embraced, and I love that. And so I wanted to ask you, the term of bibliotherapy, have you heard of it? And what does this fancy word mean? Like, I come across it in a bit of research and I'm like,
no, I don't know. So I'm happy to be educated.
Well, I come across it and I thought, no. The question was, have you ever heard of bibliotherapy? And I'm like, no. And then I thought,
I'm curious though.
Yeah. So bibliotherapy is an academic term used to describe the amazingly beneficial and very delightful mind-body reactions that occur from reading sexy, erotic stories. There you go. So you're a bibliotherapy practitioner. There you go.
A bibliographer? I don't know how you say it. Yeah, I do a lot of writing. I spend a lot of time on the thesaurus. I haven't come across that one, but I certainly will be looking at that.
Yeah,
just because sometimes I like having big words.
Quirky, they are, and that's when I come across. I thought, I must ask you.
So it's like when we're talking about in trying to get pilots in sync to perform better. It's like getting yourself in sync so you're in a space that you want sensuality and you want to experience it. That good feeling, that it's okay, and you give yourself permission. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
I might have to look into it after this.
That's right. So bring your sexy back now. Like, get
your sexy back. And it's really important, really important for especially women. You can get tired after the kids grow up. You forget. You have to almost, if you haven't got a great sex life, then you actually got to go back and remember. And you're kind of responsible for it yourself in a way to speak up and learn perhaps how to speak up, or so that's just doing research. And this is just one way that I wanted to make it relaxed, and the story, so that it's the story in it, and there's also intimate scenes in it. And I had to learn about how to actually describe them. So I've done a lot of thinking on this. So on how and exploring myself, but then actually how to describe it is a different thing altogether, because it actually gets quite clinical in the description to be able to write it.
And I know from my own experience of being part of the OME Time Library was Jess the tradie lady, and I think I resonated with her straight away. But
just having a laugh even during when things go a
Yeah.
bit wrong. Like, who cares? It's just hilarious. There's funny things can happen. I find the funny in everything, even in probably the inappropriate time.
But that's where you find enjoyment. And like, you mightn't have read this kind of fiction before because, a long time ago, you never talked about it. People were ashamed, women were ashamed, or it was, you're embarrassed to talk about it with anyone other than, there is some very liberated women out there. But it's such a topic of conversation these days because it's a learning experience, and we all need to learn, and we all need to know how to make ourselves feel the best. And that's, as we said, it's a de-stressing mechanism, and it makes us feel good, and it produces good vibes and good feeling.
Good vibe. That's it. And then, the more good vibe in the world, especially right now in the world, like we need some good vibes.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Because, there's a lot of not good vibes in the world.
That's right.
And you could be worried. So, at first it was like a bit funny for me in a way that I didn't understand these parts of me. But it was a part of my own journey to figure out the whole thing in aviation and writing Omi Time is actually about being vulnerable enough to be myself. And, so that's what I did. I'm going to write stories in this, and, it doesn't make me the expert in this area. It just makes me go the one that's stepping out there, and I'm like, why not? Let's just have a laugh, write about it. If it affects in a good way, that's good. Or if it makes you go, oh, what's that about? And find out more, that's good too. And but I think I've done the 4 seasons. I'm just sitting at the moment to work on season 5. Season 5 is going to be a bit different because I want to actually bring a little bit more of the stuff that lots of people didn't know. So I don't know if I'm going to introduce new characters and stuff to actually explain a whole, because these what I was talking about before, these 20,000 women were interviewed. I was super surprised, and I've been listening to a lot of the videos on it. So much that they didn't know they were allowed to ask, or they didn't know that you could have that, or that you could. Sometimes it's different for everybody. Like what you like is different to the one next to you, or like someone. And so to find out, how else are you going to find out if you don't go and get curious somewhere?
Yes, that's right. So I think we've pretty well covered this. So do you think erotic fiction has a sustainable place in women's erotic lives? I think it does for, overwhelmed.
I think we're only at the beginning. I think, yeah. And it's even just, so if you haven't, check out Omi Time if you want, but also check out OMGS. I should actually ring them and talk to them because I talk about them.
Yeah. Collaboration.
I'm just like, thank goodness they're getting the stuff out that, it doesn't always work. Sometimes it does. So I want to bring a bit more of the challenge into season 5, I think that, and a lot more laughter. I want to laugh about, the simplest things that can go wrong, but even, making that into still, it doesn't mean it's over. It just might mean that,
right.
You get a bit more vulnerable. Like vulnerable in just going, okay, yes, that's for me, that's not for me, or I don't want to do that, or everything's okay. Like it's really important that young girls, even old women, like if it's not for you, that's okay. It doesn't mean you have
something
to
else.
do something you don't want to do. Yeah, you can adjust or tweak it. So keep looking until you can tweak it till it's right.
So you've touched on this now, because I was going to ask you, tell us about your next writing experience, and are you considering putting pen to paper again? So we're talking about series 5 and moving on to some new characters, maybe introducing new characters. So we'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah.
No thoughts of putting a book together, like an actual?
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, there is thoughts on that.
Novella would be a good idea. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I was pondering of even bringing it out as an ebook, or even maybe even looking at season 5 in a different format, just to try that as well. And
well, there's lots of opportunity
there.
So
so I'm quite busy, but it's one of those things that when it's something creative, you need creative, for your inner human, to find your pace of to decompress. And so I don't find it when I'm writing, I disappear. So it actually is actually a release, not actually hard. But I actually consciously at the start of 2022 stopped just to have a breath and see where I'm going with it, and find out why there's 2 parts to me. But as it turned out, there's not. It's actually I'm becoming whole in this, and actually living, where it goes from here. Just living and like the experiences and learning in one area sort of just gets evolved into the other. And so I'm definitely considering some sort of book, or
yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think
like
it would be
telling the funny stories.
Yeah.
Telling the funny stories that can go wrong. It should be like that. People love those things.
and it is the quirkiness of it, the unexpectedness of it. That's what sucks you in. You're wanting to know, oh, what's going to happen now? What are they going to do now? So I think it's a great concept to follow. So lastly, Naomi, do you have any special offers that you'd like to share with our listeners? Would you like to share anything else? Any other stories today?
Oh, if they'd like to jump on, to, it's www.o-metime.com, which you'll have on all your bits around this, I guess. And there's always, you can jump on there and get 30 days free just to see if you like it too. And I would just say, if it challenges you a little bit, that always makes me go, maybe I need to look at that more. Yeah. So I can have a look at that, and I
think that's the key, because you won't know until you go and read it, because the intrigue will get you, and you think, oh, I need to read more on that. I need to read that. I need to read another story.
Yeah. And I'm okay. This is all okay, and I'm not bad. I'm fine. This is just fine, ladies.
Yes, it's exactly right. It's a natural phenomenon. It's a natural feeling, and who doesn't want to feel good in every aspect?
Yeah, exactly. It's your superpower, I would call it.
Definitely. Well, look, thanks, Naomi. It's been a great conversation, and one that is sometimes more often than not entered into quite so liberally. So happy to have the conversation today, and happy to have it again later on in the year. We'll come back and revisit and see what
I'd love to.
Series 5 has brought out for us. We'll put your links up on the show notes and on our website for anyone wanting to reach out to Naomi. And I highly recommend you get on O-Me-Time website and sign up and take care of yourself, and listen, learn a little bit more about yourselves. Look forward to
take care of your intimate self.
Yes, that's exactly right, your sensual self, and learn all about these senses and sensational feelings. But no, thank you very much, Naomi. It's been a great conversation, and we do look forward to having a chat to you again.
Hey, Glow Getters. Did you know that Jo Sainsbury is a published author for her book High Heels to High Vis, and has been named an Amazon #1 bestseller? Telling the story about Jo's transition from the corporate sector into industry, High Heels to High Vis acts as a guide for women who are considering a non-traditional role and career. High Heels to High Vis is available for purchase online at all leading bookstores, including Amazon, Dimmicks, Waterstones and eBay.
That's it, guys. I do hope you've enjoyed our show and our guest. A very big special thank you to Naomi Radke of O-Me-Time, and as what we said, she is the storytelling pilot. Thanks for sharing so much of this invaluable information with us, and I hope you've all found the information inspiring, and it gives you something to ponder and maybe action over the weekend. Feed the curiosity. After we've learned about why there aren't more female pilots and the skills women need to study aviation, we must know what must be done to increase the number of women in the aviation field. Positive action and cultural development is one to start with. So I think it's important to work positively and make it easy for women to be in the aviation industry and advance along the career ladder up to management positions. So we need to change the culture and prejudices about women's participation in the field, even though it's been a lot more prevalent, the women entering in the field nowadays. But I wanted to leave you with some high-flying info and the benefits of reading erotica fiction before we go. So empathy, imagining creates understanding. And we talked about emotional intelligence earlier on, but put yourself in the shoes of others and grow your capacity for empathy, and mainly for yourself. You can hardly do better than reading erotica fiction, I think. And when we read about a situation or feeling, it's very nearly as if we're feeling it ourselves. And that's what you want to. You want to feel you want to be able to feel. And it's great for disengagement. Reading is most effective for stress. So de-stress, ladies. Sleep, regular sleep. It's better for regular sleep. Relax before you go to bed, in bed. Practice what you're reading. Let it all occur, and you'll get it creates the perfect environment for helping you sleep. Life is complicated. Oftentimes, as we said, the busyness of life takes over. Take the time for your O-Me time and get into it. enjoy it. It makes us happier. So all these factors are great. And I think it's, I think it's great. So thanks, Naomi. And for all the listeners, thanks for your time. Catch up on all the show notes on the website and under all the social media posts. It's not goodbye, it's see you later. We'll catch up with you next week. Tune in for another great guest, and happy International Women's Day on Tuesday. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jo. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Naomi. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Kickass Radio, where we kick goals and deliver empowering conversations for women. Want to hear more from Kickass Women and Jo Sainsbury? Visit the Kickass Women website or follow Kickass Women on Facebook, LinkedIn and Instagram. See you on the next episode of Kickass Radio.